Hey friends, I'm Patrick God and welcome to this little Blazor tutorial. This time it's a bit more a beginner's tutorial maybe. So I guess you already have a little experience with Blazor WebAssembly, but as you can see in the title, it's about component communication here. So rather basic stuff. What we want to do in this tutorial is there are three types, essentially three types of component communication, meaning parent to child, child to parent, and then component to component where there is no child-parent relationship at all. So how would you do that? I can already tell you it's about state handling, or you can also call this stuff then state container, or well, I usually just call this a service. So you would need a service then to enable this communication between two components that are not child or parent or anything. So that's already everything about this tutorial, and if you like it and learn something, I would really appreciate it if you click the like button, maybe subscribe to my channel. Thanks a lot for that, and don't forget the bell icon. That would be really nice because then you get a notification as soon as I upload a new video. Additionally, please have a look at the newsletter. I am planning on creating a big course that focuses on landing a job, or well, first getting the skills that might land you a job, get you a job in the .NET and Blazor developer world, meaning we will build a couple of applications. We will also have a look at interview questions, also a little bit cover a little bit of agile stuff like Scrum, maybe a little DevOps. So the whole package you might need if you want to get a job in this industry. So maybe this is something for you. And last not least, as always, guys, my coffee is already empty, as you can see. That's really sad, but thanks so much for supporting me by buying me a coffee. This really helps. As you may know, we've got a little toddler. He's awesome, but sleeping is not his favorite activity. So sometimes you really need some coffee to be able to make these videos here. Thanks already for watching this video, and now enjoy this tutorial. All right, we create a new project, and this time we create a Blazor WebAssembly app. We can, of course, already find it here. For instance, we filter by the Blazor projects and then the Blazor WebAssembly application. So we click next, and let's call this one, for instance, Blazor component communication tutorial. Big name, but I think that's okay. So Blazor component communication tutorial it is. We configure this for HTTPS, okay, that's nice, we can do that, but doesn't really matter for this little tutorial. The framework is .NET 6, and now important, or well, it's up to you if you want to use it, ASP.NET Core hosted. For this tutorial, in my other tutorials, it's usually different. We do not have to select this, right? We do not need a web service here. I just want to show you the component communication inside of the Blazor client application. So this is totally fine here. We create the project and then let's see. All right, so here's our project. Now I assume you have a little experience with Blazor already, although this is more of a beginner's tutorial. What we see here is just our client application, our client project. Again, if we would have selected ASP.NET Core hosted, then we would also see a server project here and a shared project. Usually you would add your models, for instance, to the shared project, and the server project then would be a web API where we can make some HTTP calls, for instance. But we can close this here and let's have a quick look. Program CS is the only file we get here that, well, in essence, runs or builds our application and runs it. Then we also register some services here, like the HTTP client if we need it. But for us, very interesting are the components, and you find the components already that are generated here for us in the pages and the shared folder. If you already know this, please have a look at the chapters at the bottom of this video and just skip this little section here and then move on to the communications part. What I want to show you here real quick is already the example application, because we've already got the parent to child communication here. So let's have a quick look at the index eraser file, and what you can see here is that we use or edit a shared component which is called survey prompt, and this thing here is a parameter, and with that parameter we already tell our child component, not the application, our child component, what to use for the title. Because when we now go to the survey prompt, again, this is the child component here, you see this parameter here, little property called title, and with that attribute, we allow the parent component to tell our child component what the title is. So let's run this real quick. And then I think we're done with this example application, and we will build this again by ourselves. So parent to child is, I think, the easiest one of all the communication ways here. We go to, no, we are here already. So we are here on the index page, and this is, I think this was the title, right? When we go back, yeah, how is Blazor working for you? And again, we go to the survey prompt, and here we see then the parameter. Strong means that it is displayed in bold letters. So back to the page, here we see that how is Blazor working for you? And this stuff here, please take a brief survey and tell us, and so on, is then here in the child component itself. Now let's test this again by changing that maybe. So let's say, hey there, how are you today? We save this and let's see if hot reload works. Yep, this time it worked really nice. Well, I've got the latest version now. I think it was the update of yesterday or the day before yesterday. 17.1.0, and that's why, by the way, I think you also saw the .NET MAUI templates. I will upload a .NET MAUI tutorial soon, so maybe you want to subscribe to my channel, then you will get a notification if you click the bell icon when this new video is online. But now we are talking about communication between the Blazor components. So this is already the parent-to-child communication, but let's build this again by ourselves. What I want to do is actually, I want to use the counter page here. And as you can see here with click me, with this button, we can increase the counter, right? And now a typical thing for lots of web applications are notifications, right? So usually on the top right or something, you have a bell icon, for instance, where you have a little badge then with a count of notifications. Pretty similar to YouTube, actually. And that's what I want to build here. But first thing is I will add this icon here inside of the counter page, inside of this component, and then we will use the parent to child component to tell this notifications count component then how many notifications we've got. Then the next step would be child to parent communication, where we tell the parent that we will reset this counter. And then the actual thing we need when we use this kind of notifications icon or component, we will place this here in this top bar. And this top bar has nothing to do with this counter page. So there's no parent, no child, there's just component to component. And these components lie anywhere in this application. And well, how do we do that, right? So one step after another. First, we build our sweet little notifications count component. So back to Visual Studio, and now here in the shared folder, we add a new Razor component. And we call this notifications count. And we always want to rebuild the app and apply the changes. Now, how does this look? First, in our code block, we've got a parameter again. So this is a property in essence. So prop, yep, this works. Public int, let's call this count. What I did here, by the way, this is a built-in snippet. Just type prop and then hit tab once or twice. Can never tell if it's once or twice. And then you see the getter and the setter automatically added for you. And now very important here, parameter. This is the attribute we need. And now regarding the HTML part, not that big, I guess. Let's say this is a button of type button. That we can give this a class already. These are bootstrap classes, so this should be built in with our Blazor WebAssembly template here. And since I want to add a badge, we have to add something else. First position a relative, and then I can add the badge fixed on one of the corners of this icon or this button. Then I want to see the bell icon of the open iconic icons. That would be OI-bell, like that. And now for the actual count, we say span. And this thing gets some classes. Looks more complicated than it is. Position absolute, top dash 0, start dash 100, translate middle. It's a badge. And then a rounded pill. And the last one. So it's in a red color. BG danger for background. Danger. And then the last thing we need is we want to display this value here. So add count. And with that, then we should see the actual value. Okay, so this is our component for now. And now, again, we use it in the counter page. And to do that, let's say below the title here, we add notifications count. That's it. And now we can use our parameter with add current count. And that should be it. I would say we try this. Let's see. There it is. Nice. See that? This is now our little button here with the badge, with the number or the count of notifications. And when I click here, we see this is the actual count. Great. So that's already parent to child. And now the other way around. And what I want to do here is I want the child, I want to enable the child to tell the parent that we want to reset the counter, right? So the counter will be reset, or the notifications count component wants to reset the counter, but the value actually comes from the parent component, the counter page. So there should be a way to tell the parent to do that. And what we need is an event callback. So we go back to the notifications count. We add another parameter. So prop once. It was tab once, not twice, once. And then we call this reset count. And the type again is an event callback. And again, we need the parameter attribute here. All right. And now the next thing is we have to invoke this event. And that's why I use the button here, because now I can say on click, I want to call a method that we will implement in a minute, invoke reset count. So this will be the name of the method. Let's copy this. And now let's write this method here real quick. Private async task invoke reset count, and this is pretty small, so we can use this lambda expression here, the arrow parameter, the arrow operator, await reset count. Again, this is here our event callback, and then we say invoke async. All right, and with that we invoke this event. So these are now the changes for the notifications count. Again, quick recap. We added this event callback. We use this event callback here in this button. And for that, we call this method here that simply invokes this event. All right, so the notifications count does not really have lots of logic here. It doesn't do anything except just invoking this event. And with that, the child is telling the parent that, well, something is happening here. Now let's do something with that information. And now to do something with that is part of the counter page in our example here. And what we can do now is we add another parameter, reset count, right? So it looks pretty similar, but this was a value and this now is an event callback. And with the event, or for the event, we want to call another function, and we call this one reset count, for instance, and we implement it down here. We say private void reset count. All right, and now here we say current count is 0. And also let's display a notification message so we see really that something is happening here. And this notification message then will get a text like counter has been reset, like that. And of course we need it up here as well. So let's say private string notification message is string empty. Okay, and we display it, let's say down here. So let's add a paragraph, add notification message. Okay, so again, real quick, reset count is the parameter. We call this new function reset count. This function is here. Current count is 0. Notification message will be set to counter has been reset. And we display this thing here. And here, of course, we have to define this message. Now it hasn't been restarted properly. It seems to. So let's do that manually again. And now we've got it here. Hope this is the current version. Increasing still works. And now let's click here. Yep, this works as well. Great. So the child now told the parent, reset the counter, please. And again, we can start from 0. Awesome. Okay, now this was the easy and simple part. And now it's getting a little bit more complicated. Now, as I told you, I want to move this button here on top. So instead of this about link, I want to see my notifications. And when I click on this button, I want to reset my counter. And still, when I click this button here, click me, I want to increase the counter and tell this component that the value has been changed. But there is no parent-child relationship between those components. So how do we do that? Well, this stuff is called state handling, or you can also say we need a state container. Whatever name you want to choose here, as always in the web or in general in the development world, there are a couple of names for all that stuff. Isn't really important, in my opinion. I would say we use a service for that. And this service has some functions and some values, and the components that want to make changes to that notifications icon here, or that notifications count component, just use this service then. All right, so this is in essence the whole magic, and when you know this, it's not that complicated anymore. So what we do then is, in our little application, we create a new folder first. So it's a bit more organized, and let's call this folder services. And I want to add a notification service. So what you can do is either add another folder for notification service, or we just add our notification service class here directly. But what I want to do is I also want to add an interface here, so we can inject this iNotification service, use dependency injection here. Big advantage is maybe sometimes, or eventually you want to change something or try something else, or want to use unit tests, implement unit tests, then it does make sense to use an interface and inject this thing, because then you can have several implementation classes, and when we register the service, then we can just change the name and you're done. So it is less work in the long run, but now at the beginning, maybe it seems it's a bit more work, but please stay with me here. You will see it's not that bad. Okay, so we add a new item, and this is an interface. So wait, interface. So iNotification service. All right, perfect. And now we also add the implementation class. And this thing now is called notification service. All right, and this implements the iNotification service like that. All right, now here in the interface, we define some stuff. First, we've got our count. So similar to the actual components, I think big advantage again is that we do not have all that logic, or we don't need it in the component. Then we can actually remove all that and just use the service for this. So the components get smaller, which is, I think, a good thing. And you can really focus on really the logic the component needs, and only the HTML code and less C# code in the component. So I think it's more organized, but that's, again, it's just my way to do all that. So we've got the count, and we've got a function again to increment the counter this time. So with that, when this is called, we just, well, increment the counter by 1. Another function to reset the counts. And now I can already tell you that we need an event again. This time it's of type action here. So event action on change. And this is already the whole magic, really. This is how this works, how the component can tell all the other components that something is changing here, because when it changes, the value changes, the count value, then all the components that want to know this can subscribe to this onChange event. And well, with that subscription, they then know that they have to re-render itself and get the new value. And by talking about subscriptions, I know this is really cheesy, but maybe you want to subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate that. All right, and then the implementation class. Now you see there are some errors here. Does not implement lots of stuff, but what we can do is we can just press Ctrl and period, or use the light bulb menu here, the quick fix menu with the light bulb. Implement the interface, and we've got a lot of stuff now. We don't want these exceptions here, so let's remove them. Get set, and we initialize that with 0. The event stays the same. Now increment counter. Well, increments the count value, and now says on change invoke. We need the question mark here, because if no component subscribed to that thing, then it is null, and this would lead to an error then. So please make sure to add the question mark. And the last thing here, reset count. We set the count to 0, and then say again on change invoke. And that's our service. Last step is to register this thing. For that, we go to the program CS, and now here we can say builder services add scoped, but then in angle brackets we say for the I notification service, we want to use the implementation class notification service, and we also add the using directive for our services here. Another thing we can already do is add this using actually in the imports Razor file, because with that we do not have to use the complete namespace in our components. So this makes our stuff, our implementations, a bit easier. And now to add our notifications count in the top bar, we go to our main layout Razor file, and here you see the about link. And now we just say notifications count, close it already, and that's it. See, no parameter used, nothing like that. We save this. Let's just stop the app so it is not getting on my nerves. And the next thing now is implementing the notification count, because we have to change it a little bit. So back to the notification count, and now we have to first inject our notification service, because we want to access it. All right, so for that we enter add inject I notifications notification service, and we call this thing notification service like that. And the other thing is we implement the iDisposable interface, so that on dispose we unsubscribe from the onChange event, right? So add implements iDisposable. And now this is getting interesting. Actually, we don't need any of that stuff anymore. So let's just remove it. And now you see it's not available anymore, right? So we can use our notification service now for these values and the function. So notification service count, the first thing. And here now we use notification service and then the function reset count. All right, let's maybe put this in a new line like that. Now you can see it a bit better. All right, so using notification service here and here. But now what about the events? Well, what we want to do is as soon as the onChange event is called, we want to re-render our component. So what we can do is already when this notifications count component is initialized, then we subscribe to the onChange event. We do that with one of the 3 lifecycle methods. We've got onInitialized, on parameter sets, and on after render. See it here in a second. To override it, we enter protected, override, and then void. And here you can see this, right? So we've got onInitialized and also the asynchronous version of it. Parameter set. Well, onInitialized is the very first one. So when this component is initialized, then this thing is called. Next is parameters set. Well, when parameters, you see it here, method invoked when the component has received parameters from its parents in the render tree and the incoming values have been assigned to the properties. So when you want to make sure you have different parameters, or what's also an option really where you have to pay attention, if you use a page, for instance, with parameters, and the page itself might change the parameters. This happens, for instance, when you're using pagination. So you have a result, a search result of items, don't know what products maybe. We do exactly that, by the way, in the Blazor e-commerce course. So maybe you want to have a look. There's also a 4-hour preview here available on YouTube. So maybe this is something for you. And in there then, when you click on the other pages, right, you are on page 1, and then you switch to page 2. With that, we change the parameter in the address bar, so the parameter of the actual page route. And when you want the component to recognize this change, you have to use onParameterSet. OnInitialized won't work. OnParameterSet, that's important here. Okay, and the last thing is on render on after render, and here you can see method invoked after each time the component has been rendered, and this happens a couple of times actually. So that's why they got these bool first render argument here, because usually you would check if this is now the first render, then do something, and if you don't make this this if statement, if you don't add this if statement here, you don't check that for the first render, then you would see, when you use the console for instance, that well, the component renders a couple of times, and every single time then you would call whatever you are calling there, or you execute your code in this case. Okay, so that was a bit well, that was more than I actually wanted to tell you, but maybe these are valuable information. So, but onInitialized now, we say notification service onChange plus equals state has changed. This is the magic, and it tells us notifies the component that its state has changed. When applicable, this will cause the component to be re-rendered. And this is exactly what you want, meaning the count value has changed, and then we tell our component that it should re-render. So this is everything we want to do here. And again, to, well, don't risk any memory leaks, we use the dispose method here. So void dispose, we say notification service onChange minus equals state has changed. All right, and these are all the changes for our notification count component. And the last thing is now our counter page. So in here again, we inject the notification service. So at page I notification service, not page, inject. What am I doing here? Focus, Patrick, focus. Okay, that's what we want to do. Now we just uncomment this thing here like that, or we could also remove it, but that's not that important for now. And then the last thing, actually, increment count, for that we say notifications service increment counter. All right, and that's it. So we removed this thing here actually and injected the notification service, and the only thing we do is running or calling the increment counter method of our notification service. So we go here, count would be incremented, and then we call on change invoke, and then in our notifications count we would see, hey, something has been changed, so please re-render, and then we get the actual value. And the other thing is that we say reset count, and with that the again the method here says, okay, the count is now 0, and we invoke this event. So I would say we save this and test it one last time. There it is. All right, maybe I add the open the console so that we see it a bit more in the middle, more centered here. And yeah, could add a bit CSS so you, well, this doesn't matter, I guess. So you see the badge, you see the bell icon. Now we can say click me, and we see that the value has been changed. Isn't that great? So we really see that now the communication between one component and the other, and there's no parent-child relationship, works. And again, we can reset, and this works as well. And now here you see that these are really different, right? This is another count value than this one here. We can reset again, and this really is the value of the notification service, and this is the value of the counter page. So the default example application stuff, and here it's our notification service. All right, that's it. If you want to check out the code, please head to the video description and go to the GitHub repository. I will push this, and then we're done. There you have it, guys. Was pretty easy, right? So parent, child, child, parent, and then the service that enables every component to communicate with each other. This is everything you need to know if you want to build, well, components and the component communication. So thanks a lot for watching. And if you learned something, then please consider clicking the like button, maybe even subscribing to my channel. It does make a difference. Thanks a lot for that. Don't forget the bell icon to get a notification when I upload a new video. Also, you may want to have a look at my newsletter. It's not only about the upcoming course, but also getting these videos here earlier in your inbox, and maybe also other articles. So consider subscribing. Thanks a lot for that. And the last thing, thank you very, very much for all your support. It's the last drop of coffee here. Means a lot to me and helps me creating these videos regularly, as you may know already. So again, thanks a lot for watching. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope I see you next time. Take care.